So, he is my service animal because I have severe hearing loss. Does anybody know what a cochlear implant is? Yeah, okay, so I have 2 of them. So I lost my hearing about 9 years ago, and so I had 2 different surgeries that enabled me to hear in somewhat quiet situations. In noisy situations, I really struggle. So I have these special devices, I have 2 of them, and I have a magnet that goes into, it's on the other side of my skull, and it sends a signal for me to hear. But when I have them out, I can't hear anything. So I got a service dog, mostly to help me in my home, because when I'm sleeping or I just take them out, if there are sounds I can't hear, I'm in trouble. So most importantly would be the smoke alarm, okay? So if I'm anywhere in my house and the smoke alarm goes off, he finds me, and then with his nose, he taps me on my thigh, like boom, boom, boom. And I say, what? And then he is trained, if it's a smoke alarm, to go to a down position, like, you know how when you were a little kid, they said drop and roll with fire, you know? So he's not taking me to the smoke, he's telling me there's smoke in the house. But if, let's say I'm in the bedroom and my kitchen timer goes off, he comes and finds me, taps me, I say what, and he leads me to the kitchen and points with his nose up where the timer is. If I leave the refrigerator door open, he'll take me to the refrigerator. I don't know why, I don't seem to be able to shut that thing. So what I did, which was really cool, on the Bradenton campus, and I don't know if it's like this in Venice, but we have golf carts all over the place. So there are a bunch of golf carts here, like, and I've almost gotten run over by them because I don't seem to be able to walk straight. You know, I'm like, oh, I think I'll go over here. So I trained him that when we're walking, if there's a golf cart coming from behind, he can hear it, honestly, like a mile away. Not a mile, really a block. And he will go to a sit position to stop me to let the golf cart go around. And that golf cart sound, I guess, is pretty, like it's a lower hum. And he's so smart that there was a guy coming in an electric wheelchair once, and he stopped me, because I guess the sound is similar, for me to come around. So the hardest thing about having a service animal is what Professor Walters just said, is not letting people pet him. Because everywhere you go, people are like, oh, I love your dog, can I pet him? And you have to say no, and it's just really heartbreaking to have to tell people they can't pet him. But the reason you can't let him be petted is because he's still working when he's with me, and if he starts like associating everybody with his best friend, he's gonna forget all about me, and it's all gonna be about him getting attention from people. But when he is home and his vest is off, he's a dog. So if you came to my house for dinner, you could sit on the couch, play with him, toss the ball, the whole bit. But when he's out in public, he's gotta be like, you know, you have to ignore him. And I always, my little phrase for him is ignore his cuteness. Ignore his cuteness, ignore his cuteness. Oh, somebody you're the first person he actually like turned around for. So I got him from an agency in Orlando that trains for hearing loss and also for people with physical disabilities. So the dogs there will help them like retrieve items that they drop, open the refrigerator door, all kinds of things. So service animals are trained for the specific disability. So for somebody who is blind, and I'm sure you've all seen somebody who was visually impaired with a guide dog, that dog is trained to make sure that they're not falling off a curb, they're going around an obstacle, they're stopping at, you know, an intersection, they're guiding them on a path. You know, obviously he's trained for sounds. There are dogs that are also trained for seizure disorders, and that to me is just like the most amazing thing. Sometimes dogs can be trained to smell some type of scent that the humans can't smell when you're gonna have a seizure or maybe a diabetic episode, And the dog can sense that, which is amazing. I saw a video once of a dog that was trained. When the person was starting to have a seizure, the dog would jump on their lap, and that would signal like, oh, I'm gonna have a seizure. So the person, if they could, get down on the floor so that they don't fall. And then the dog actually got underneath the person so they weren't hitting their head on the floor. So it's amazing what these dogs can do. So we're gonna do like a little, we have about 10 true or false questions about service animals. I wanna see what you guys know and what you think you know. So the main thing I wanna say is that a service animal has to be trained to perform a task, okay? So it has a job to do, right? So it has to be related to the disability. So obviously for the seizures, it's helping get under the person. For the visually impaired, it's guiding them. So it's related to their disability. So I'm gonna ask you a couple of yes or no questions. We'll do a raise of hands. So are emotional support or comfort animals considered service animals? How many people think yes? Well, the answer is actually no, so I'm gonna tell you the difference. Okay, so an emotional support animal, and it can be more than a dog, okay? It could be a cat or, you know, I've seen porcupines and all kinds of exotic pets too. Their presence makes the person feel more safe or calmer, okay? So the presence of the dog makes me feel good. That dog or cat isn't really trained to do anything, but they're just supportive. Now, there are sometimes we have folks who have PTSD, especially like folks who have been in the military maybe. They have PTSD after being discharged, and they could get a service dog that is trained to sense when they're gonna have an anxiety attack. Maybe put their paws on the person to kind of comfort them to reduce the panic attack. That is a trained service dog. That dog is trained to do something. We could also have another person with PTSD whose emotional support pet just makes them feel good. Oh, I feel calmer now because I'm petting my dog. So that's the difference. And so service dogs are allowed in public places, right? So, you know, you see dogs like in Publix or restaurants, places like that, but emotional support pets are only allowed in your home. So that's kind of the difference, and people kind of get them confused sometimes. So here's the next questions. Must a service animal be professionally trained? How many people think yes? Okay, how many people think no? Okay, the answer is no, believe it or not, got that right. Now, there's lots of agencies that train service animals, okay? And I personally was very fortunate that the agency I got him from, it's a nonprofit, so it didn't cost me any money. I was on a waiting list for a few years, and to be able to get him, I had to show all my medical records, I had to go through an interview, I had to actually work with a dog. So they wanted to make sure I wasn't like a person incapable or didn't have the right temperament to work with the dog, or I wasn't like a poser pretending I had a disability. So it was pretty strict. And he was in training. Basically, they, at this agency and most agencies, they actually breed these dogs to become service dogs. So they find like the best male and female service dog, and they become like the ones that they mate the dogs together, and they have like the perfect temperament, the perfect physical, you know, no physical problems with their hips, everything's perfect about those dogs. They usually have 3 or 4 litters, and when that litter is born, for 8 weeks, you know, it stays with the mom. Then they put them, all those little tiny puppies, through this rigorous test. And if there's one little thing, like one dog had a little bit of an overbite, they don't make the cut. So those puppies just go out and become cute little, great little pets. So then you got, let's say his litter was 11. So let's say 9 of them made it. So the next 9, then go off to a puppy raiser. And these are people that just volunteer to raise these puppies. And it's a lot of work, because you guys ever had puppies, they chew and they're not housebroken, and you can't leave them all the time. So these puppy raisers are all over the United States, have to go to a special training where they're going to teach these dogs 50 commands. So they really have a job to do, and they socialize the dogs. So when they get done their puppy raising, and usually now the dog's about a little bit, maybe even 1.5 years old, they take them to one of the centers, and they put them through this rigorous training. And from there, they decide which ones really have what it takes to be a service dog, usually 50% of them. So let's say now we're down to that litter of 11, maybe we're down to 5 now that have made it this far, okay? The other dogs might be great, but they're just too excitable or too distracting, or who knows what, but they're still great dogs. So those go out to people's homes, they become wonderful pets. So now let's say we have 5. So they're at the center, and they put the dogs through tests to see what type of service dog they would be best suited for. So maybe one would be better for a PTSD veteran. They have that program. Maybe one's better for somebody in a wheelchair. Maybe one's better for the hearing. So they put them through all this specialized training, and they kind of find, it's like finding your ultimate job, right? Some people are more cut out to be a nurse, somebody more cut out to be, a teacher. So like with his group, he ended up obviously in the hearing group. So when I got the phone call that I was ready to come for training, there was myself and 2 other people with hearing loss. And there were 7 hearing dogs, okay? So for the first 4 days, we worked with all 7 dogs. And what the trainers are doing is they're trying to see which dog responds best to each person. And it's not about what dog I think is the cutest or what dog I just love. And they tell us we're not allowed to say, I want this dog. In fact, they're very strict. If you really say that, they will kick you out, because you have to sign an agreement that you're not there to get a pet. You're there to be matched. And sometimes we don't see what dog is best for us, but somebody else can notice. Like I might think, oh, this is the best dog for me, but I don't notice that my dog's looking the other way a lot, and maybe somebody else picked up on the fact that dog isn't zeroed in on me. So the fun part is you don't know what dog you're gonna get. It's so suspenseful. And we all, at night, we'd all talk, I think I'm getting this one. I'm thinking I'm getting that one. So it's really exciting, because you're like, which dog? So you kind of can guess towards the end, because I noticed they kept having him do more things with me, but I still thought I was gonna be with this other dog. And then they do this ceremony where they bring your dog out and around a corner, and that's your dog. So out of those 7 dogs, 3 of them got matched with us. That left 4 dogs, and then I did a little research, and out of those 4 dogs, only 1 more, he made it the next round, and the other 3 became pets. So you can see from when they were born all the way down to here, maybe out of that litter of 11, maybe 2 made it. So that's how strict and how well behaved and responsive these dogs have to be. Now you can see, he is just trained to be very unaffected by anything around him, fireworks, cars, anything. But yet, the sounds he's trained for, he's alert. And I'll do a little training. Oh, I left my phone in the car, darn. He's alerted to my phone. And when my phone goes off, no matter what, he could be sleeping like a rock. He jumps up right up. So when you get a dog from an agency, if it's a reputable agency, and most are, they're going to be just like this. It's so well trained. However, there are sometimes people will pay somebody to train a dog, and usually that's a very good thing. But I've had a couple students who have trained their own service dogs quite well. I mean, really well. I'm just so impressed that the dogs have been well behaved and on the mark. Once or twice I've had students come to see me with dogs that they've trained that I've had to say, I'm sorry, you know, your dog's not well trained enough to be on campus yet, because the dog was like growling, one dog was growling at somebody, no. Other dog was just all over the place. So they have to be, obviously, in public places. Now, there's still dogs, so there may be a dog that's a service dog that might get a little excitable. As long as the handler can kind of bring it back into control, it's okay. They don't have to be perfect all the time, but we can't have a dog that's like, you know, running around. So let's do another one. Do service animals have to wear a vest in public places? How many people think yes? Okay, how many people think no? The answer is no. Isn't that crazy? You would think that you would have to, I think they should, I wish it was a rule, but it's not. But, yes?
Wouldn't it just be if you didn't have the vest on the dog, that you shouldn't like automatically think that the person will get all the benefits with it? Like, it'd be very easy for somebody to say, oh, he can come in, he's a service dog. It would make a lot more sense.
Okay, so I'm having a little hearing issue. So say that again.
I was just thinking, because even though you said it's not a rule, they don't need it on, if
Yeah.
the person doesn't have it on their dog,
Right.
most likely they're not gonna be treated like it's a service dog.
That's exactly right.
And that's the main risk for it. I
That's
think
right.
that's true, you should be able to be without them.
So, to me, when you have the service dog vest on your dog, it's telling everybody, this is a service animal. He has a job. I'm allowed to be in here in Publix with my service dog. This is great. But legally, you can't require it. So legally, I can take that vest off of him, walk into Publix, and if somebody said, oh, we only allowed service animals, I can say, well, he's a service animal, and they can't say, well, where's his vest? He needs a vest. I think it should be mandatory. So here's my next question. Does a service animal have to be like certified, like with, like you know how you have handicap stickers in cars to park in the handicap? Do you think you have to have some kind of like ID that says service dog? No. Isn't that crazy? It's not really regulated like you would think it is. So there's only 2 questions that anybody can ask me. So if I walk into Publix, the manager of Publix can't say, he can't be in here because he doesn't have a vest. He can't say that. He can't say, show me your service dog ID. The only 2 things he can say is this a service dog trained to perform a task based on a disability? So he can't say, what's your disability? Now, if I say yes, and then he can say, what is your dog trained to do? So that can kind of give it away. It's trained to guide me because I can't, you know, get around the store and see things in the aisle. Or my dog alerts me to sounds. Or my dog alerts me to episodes of epilepsy. So you kind of give the disability away, but they can't say, what is your disability? That's illegal. Is it a service dog trained to perform a task? What task is it trained to perform? So, because of this, there's a lot of people that bring fake service dogs places, right? Think about it. It's a no-brainer, and it makes people with real service dogs really mad, because I've been places where these people have service dogs that are like jumping and growling and lunging at him, and a real service dog, really well-trained service dog, isn't going to do that. So people with service dogs wish it was regulated. You know, I always say it should be kind of like the handicap parking. If you break your leg, your doctor can write a note, you send it to Tallahassee, and you get a temporary handicap parking thing. And you know when you park in that spot, you've got that hang tag, you're cool. You can't just park your car and go, oh, I have a disability, but I don't have to prove it, and I want to park here, you know? So, but for some reason, I think the government originally thought they didn't want to make people with disabilities have to jump through a lot of regulations and hoops. But in doing that, it created these fake service dog people. You can go on the internet and buy a vest. Anybody can. And you can buy a fake card. Like, there's scammers out there have made money off of this. So there's a big push from different agencies like his to try to get it more regulated, so we know we're not gonna have like illegal service dogs, you know, coming into places. So, here's another question. Are service dogs permitted to go through salad bars and other food service lines? How many people think yes? The answer is yes. And a lot of people think, oh no, the dog's gonna bring dirt and germs or whatever, but you know, the dog is down here, you know, so that you can bring them in there. Can they go to schools, restaurants, movie theaters? Everybody's yes, yeah. So, and you've seen probably most places. We talked about the certification. So do service dogs have to be a certain breed? How many people think yes? Be any breed? Yes. So, one time when I work up at the Bradenton campus, the testing staff called me in a panic and they said, somebody's brought a pit bull in. And they say it's a service dog, but it's a pit bull. And I said, well, did you ask him if it was a service dog? And they said, yeah. He said, because of a disability? Yeah. And it's trained to do a task? Yes. I said, is the dog doing anything disruptive? Well, no, it's just standing next to him. I said, so it's allowed to be here. Dog went in, sat with the veteran, took the test, went home. So you can't discriminate against dog breeds. And most dogs from agencies, you're gonna see them more like him, the labs are the most common. You know, sometimes German Shepherds for guide dogs, but more and more you're gonna see a lot of Labradoodles are being trained. Poodles are super smart, and Labs are really smart too, and the temperament, it goes together. Okay, so, could I get kicked out of a place with a service animal? Anybody think yes? The answer is actually yes, but let me tell you, there's only certain reasons you could get kicked out. So, he's a service animal, right? But let's say for some reason I went someplace, even though we know he's trained and he's a legitimate service animal, and he starts to growl at you, and he's baring his teeth and he's growling. Unless I can get him to stop growling, that manager, that restaurant can say, I'm sorry, you mentioned that this is a service dog, but he is being aggressive and it's upsetting the other patrons, you're gonna need to leave. Or let's say he isn't mean, but he is just so excited, he is jumping on everybody and kissing them and practically knocking them over with his friendliness and excitedness. And we can't have that in the middle of a library, right? So the people that work there could say, unless you can get your dog under control, we're gonna have to ask you to leave. So there still are rules, you know, you just because they're trained, if they have a really bad day, we can ask them to leave. And I've worked with a few students whose dogs have been a little hyper and on the edge, and with a little bit more training, they got better. So if we don't say, out of here right now, like we give them a little bit of a chance. You know, we don't want to be that, you know, strict. Okay. Can service animals be restricted from zoos? How many people think yes?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Tough one, huh? The actual question is yes and no. Certain areas of zoos. So if there is an area, and what I was reading about on the internet, on this service animal government site, the exhibits where, I guess like something like a lion, where that lion would love to have a piece of him, right? So it would disrupt the natural vibe of the habitat. If this dog is there, the lions would go crazy, and we're not there to disturb the lions. So maybe something like, I'm trying to think what area of a zoo would be less, I don't know, everybody thinks, I'm thinking alligators still would like him. I don't know, maybe snakes, I don't know. But I haven't taken him to a zoo, but I think out of respect for the other animals, I get it. So certain areas, it's not like if I went to Busch Gardens, I'm sure there's certain areas, depending also how far back the animals are, you know, so that is one that we could. And the last one, yes or no, is he the cutest dog you've ever seen?
I can't.
Yes, okay, good, you gotta have a, no, you all go, no, my dog's cuter than him, right? All right, so any questions about service animals? Yeah.
Does it have to be a dog? Does the service animal have to be a dog?
Can't be a pony?
So, that is a really, that's such a good question.
Service
So,
alien.
I'm so glad you asked that. Believe it or not, there is one exception to dogs. Does anybody know what that is? Miniature horses. And I met one once. I was at a conference and there was a woman who was blind who had a miniature horse, and honestly, it was the same size as him. And you know, you guys, most of the girls might know My Little Pony. Remember those little My Little Pony dolls? They looked just like that. It had like the long hair, like you just want to brush it. That pony stood next to her for at least 50 minutes, just at like attention, just like a dog, just extremely calm. And I asked her, why would you want a miniature pony, a miniature horse actually, instead of a dog? And she said because they live about 30 years. And that she had dogs before that, and the dogs like maybe 10 and a half, 11 years, and it was so sad for her. So she got the miniature horse. You don't see them very often. I think there's like 3 left in the United States, mostly it's dogs, but yeah. Where emotional supports could be almost anything, but pretty much, except for the miniature horse, you're gonna see, you know, dogs. Any other questions about service animals? Okay, so now we're gonna talk about Disability Resource Center. So, we
Can
have,
someone grab the lights, please, so you guys can see what's on the screen?
here in Venice, the Disability Resource Center is in Building 100. That's, you know, where you have like admissions, financial aid, testing. And so to qualify for services, you have to have a documented disability. So that could be ADHD, hearing loss, vision loss, autism, a physical disability, vision, a little bit of anything. Pretty much it has to be documented by like a medical or healthcare professional, or if you had services in high school, like a 504 or an IEP, you would be able to qualify for services. So in order to get services, the first thing is you have to apply. And I'm gonna have her click on this application. It's super easy. Oh, we're not gonna be able to get into it because you have to,
It's
they
one
changed
step
it with
at
the
a
new
time.
thing. All right, I'll just walk you through. So, you have to apply, which is basically your name and your student number, and you check off what your disability or disabilities are. And once you fill out the application, we're gonna ask you to provide some type of proof. So it could be a letter from your doctor saying you have migraine headaches. It could be something from a mental health counselor saying that you are dealing with anxiety or depression. It could be something from a doctor saying you have seizures. It could be something about hearing loss. Whatever the documentation is, it has to have like a medical professional signing it. And like I mentioned, some people in high school or middle school or even elementary school might have had services where they have an IEP or 504 plan. If you know what that is, that would qualify you. So the purpose of registering with us is to get what we call accommodations. So an accommodation for somebody who's deaf would be a sign language interpreter. Maybe somebody with vision loss would have magnification or a computer talking to them. Maybe somebody with a reading learning disability would have a reader, or the screen would read, you know, software would read it, the test to them. Most people get extra time on tests, quiet testing area. I notice here we have a special table. This is for folks who can't sit. Let's say you have a bad back. You can't sit in these hard chairs. You can sit in that comfy chair with an adjustable desk. We have tag on there reserving it. Some people with vision need to be in a certain seat. So whatever your disability is, we're gonna come up with an individualized plan to help you. And if you scroll down to step 3, so you apply and you give us documentation, then you do what we call an intake. You would meet with me, or on this campus, Mary Hoffman is the staff member. And what we do is we really get to know you. We talk about, hey, how's this disability impacting you in testing or in the classroom? And we come up with a plan where we're going to list all the accommodations you're gonna be provided. So this is the super, super important part. When you register with our office, we do not tell your teachers or any other staff what your disability is. So let's say you have anxiety, okay? That's between you and me. Your records are only in our office. So it's not like your teacher can know your business. Your teacher will get a letter that says, John Smith has officially registered with our office. Please provide extra time on tests in a quiet area for this student. The teacher can't say, well, why are you getting this? What's your disability? Give me your, give me your personal information. There's nothing on your transcript. There's nothing on your diploma. And a lot of people don't know that. Then they don't want to be labeled like, oh, people are going to think I have a disability and know my business. If you have a disability, please come over to the DRC and talk to, our office staff, and we can kind of guide you through it. I'm not gonna ask anybody here to tell me, and I don't want you to tell me you have a disability, because we're all in a group, and we wanna keep this confidential. So, it's not like you have to hide it, but like somebody like me, I talk about my disability openly, because I can't hear well. So like when we were talking, I had to come up again. But some people wanna keep their disability a little bit more confidential. It can really help if you register, because there are services that really might make big difference in you being able to get through school with a lot less difficulty and just having the supports you need. So we're located here in Venice in building 100. If you guys ever up in Bradenton, we're up in the main student services building, which is building 1 there. And then we come out to Lakewood Ranch to meet with students who live in that area. Does everybody here pretty much live South County? Y'all South County people? Okay, so you might never make it up there, but if you do, we're up there too. And what I think you should do if like after you leave here, if you're like, hey, I wanna learn more about what they do, stop on over. So when you go in, we're the first door on the right, and it's a resource that we probably have about 500 students, so there's more students than you think that do qualify. And also, we also help people with temporary disabilities. So we just had some guy who broke his hand and he's taking calculus. I know. So we actually have one of our staff scribing his calculus for him. He has to say, and we write it down. That's not easy. I did it once for chemistry. It was like very hard. So, because we don't want him to, have to drop the class. It's just he can't write like he did. So write this here, write that there, carry the 1, bring this down. So if something happens and you have a temporary disability, a lot of times we'll have students in car accidents, things like maybe they just need some help for a semester or so, let us know, because we don't want you to like drop your classes because you had a temporary setback. We'll try to keep you in them as much as possible. And I guess that's it.
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions?
No, you guys have been great. I'm so glad they have this class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. We're having a pretty good time.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
it's
You learn
class.
a lot about what college is all about and all the things that are available, because most people don't know, orientation's quick, but this is a lot more
Yes.
intense.